Hello and welcome. Gigabyte's Aorus 17X for 2023 is finally equipped with a vapor chamber and RTX 4080 12GB capable of 175 watts max TGP, has 5600 MHz DDR5 RAM, a full Windows Pro license on board, and symmetric keys on the keyboard including a QWERTY section and numpad with backlighting and RGB for the win. It's also fairly thin and somewhat light for a laptop of its class. That's not to say that it's winning any awards, but it offers a well-balanced weight and size to performance and overall multi-use scenario ratio that you'll be hard-pressed to find reasons not to like it. So then, is there something not to like about this laptop? Well, there is a couple of things. Let's jump into my full review of the 2023 Gigabyte Aorus 17X and find out. And don't forget to stay tuned till the end where I give my recommendation to see if you should buy this laptop. And more importantly, who is the targeted audience for this device? What do you think it'll be? Do you think you know the answer already? Stick around till the end to find out. The Gigabyte Aorus 17X for 2023 features the Intel i9-13900HX 24-core and 32-thread CPU with a max boost of 5.4 GHz. It comes with 16 GB of DDR5 5600 MHz RAM, though in single channel. Also included is a 1TB PCIe NVMe Gen 4 SSD, also from Gigabyte, a 17-inch Quad HD 240Hz 100% DCI-P3 color coverage IPS display. And the star of the show, the NVIDIA RTX 4080 12GB GPU running at a max TGP of 175 watts. Also included is a Realtek RTL 8125 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, Intel AX210 Wi-Fi 6E with Bluetooth 5.3 on board, a per-key RGB backlit keyboard, a 1080p 30 frames per second webcam and an IR camera for Windows Hello biometric authentication, a 99 watt-hour lithium-ion battery, and a 330 watt power adapter, all coming in at around 2.8 kilograms or just a little over 6 at 6.17 pounds. And all of this is priced at $34.99 Canadian or $26.99 US dollars. Speaking of build quality on this Gigabyte Aorus 17X for 2023, Gigabyte states all over its website and in the key specifications that this device is made from CLC milled aluminum, and they spend quite a bit of time talking about how it's machined with high precision materials, although there is no mention specifically of what is the combination that this device is made of: aluminum, titanium, nickel, what some of the other combinations are. They just say that it's a CNC milled all metal body device. And I can say from experience over the last couple of weeks here that the device and its build quality are simply excellent. I have zero complaints about the overall build quality and the feel in the hand. There is no torque whatsoever. It feels solid, and it's actually, considering some of the other devices I've used this year, it's actually not as thick as some of its competitors. So if we look at the device here head on, you can see here if it's under well illumination that it's actually not as thick as some of the other devices I've used, such as the Alienware or perhaps even the Legion series that I have coming in real soon. So that said, it actually has very good usability and it actually fits in the hand very well, which makes it a really nice device in terms of overall balance and size and weight. At just a little over 6 pounds, it does not break the back. It fits easily into a standard 17-inch laptop backpack, and thus far I've had no complaints about the build quality. If we look at the bottom of this device here, it's got lots of ventilation and these rubber feet are well placed, so they allow the laptop to really grip the table, and you won't find any issues with this slipping or sliding around as you're working or typing or even enjoying some games. And as there's lots of ventilation on the bottom here, I think the biggest plus point this year for the Gigabyte laptops are that the cooling solutions have really been kicked up a notch. I've been so impressed with the cooling capacity of this laptop, the noise of the fans that they've been turned way down, and the overall thermal experience that I've had with this device has been absolutely phenomenal. I did not expect Gigabyte to do so well in the fans department, particularly that they've been culprits of very high pitched fan noise in the past. So to see this was very refreshing, and to be able to hit nearly the full maximum TGP that's promised on this laptop with this type of a cooling solution was simply exceptional. I don't think I've tested a laptop this year of which I had very little hopes, but it far exceeded my expectations and, you know, surprised me in a good way in terms of the overall balance of power, performance, thermals, and fan noise. Keep in mind that this portion of the laptop in the back does get very hot, as all of the heat vents and fins are in here that use the copper heat pipes in the vapor chamber to exhaust the air, 2 on the sides, 2 on the back with 4 fans. This has exceptional cooling capacity. You will not find any issues with this thing being able to keep up with the RTX 4080 running at full throttle, 175 watts of max TGP. And while you're gaming, if you have the device open like this, you'll notice that none of this area here is warm at all. I've done a separate video that does testing of thermals and fan noise on this particular device. Please go and check that out on my channel, as that will give you a more detailed overview of what the fan noise and the thermal profiles are like on this particular laptop, whether it's benchmarking or whether it's enjoying some really popular AAA games. Overall, a very impressive picture in terms of build quality. Very nice soft touch materials here. The only complaint I would have if I was to say something about the build quality, it catches a lot of dust. So you'll definitely be carrying one of these around to make sure that you can wipe this down with a microfiber cloth from time to time to keep it fingerprint free, finger oils free, and to just keep the dust off. Port selection is decent, with the left hand side of the device offering a headphone microphone combo 3.5mm jack and a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port. On the right side, another USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port is on offer with a singular and the sole Thunderbolt 4 port on the Aorus 17X for 2023. On the rear, you'll find an HDMI 2.1 port, a mini display port 1.4 port, and an inverted RJ45 Gigabit Ethernet port and a 330 watt DC power in jack. Missing here are a full-sized SD card, a port that Gigabyte has raved about offering over the past years, and in the highest speeds such as the UHS-2 format. Though that's mostly been on the Aero or other creator-oriented devices, and given that the Aorus 17X is more gamer-focused, I'll cut them some slack. Keyboard, RGB backlight, and trackpad. Let's start with the easy one, the trackpad. This device is equipped with a Windows Precision glass trackpad, and it's got a nice Aorus logo etched on here, so it's a nice little aesthetic touch without being overpowering. I do appreciate that there's a little bit of a class to this device, and the way that this is etched on, it doesn't look too bad. It is a very smooth glass surface. I've had zero issues activating multi-touch gestures on this device and preventing overall accidental taps or touches when I'm using the keyboard to type. If we listen in to the press experience, if you press this as a button, you'll see that it's actually not that bad either. So here we go. Overall pretty good, and a well balanced and equalized sounding experience. Unless you press, of course, towards the very top, which is where the hinges are, so you'll find it a little bit stiffer at the top, but otherwise very easy to press without too much noise and overpowering the user. Now, let's get to the keyboard and the RGB. The keyboard, first of all, I have tons of praise for this keyboard because guess what? All of the keys are symmetric and the same size. Thank you very much for doing this, Gigabyte. I don't understand why keyboards need to be squished in this much on laptops when you have particularly 17-inch keyboard, which can easily fit a full-size TKL keyboard layout. And since I find the TKL layout to be the most usable across the board for many people and for many use cases, I think that would be the ideal keyboard for such devices. However, that aside, the fact that they did reduce the pitch a little bit and the key spacing, but managed to keep all of the keys the equal width and same size keycaps is pretty impressive nonetheless. Thank you for doing that, Gigabyte. And with 2mm of key travel, it's not half bad either. Here we go. So, and with this, I don't need to retrain because I can basically turn on the num lock and I can start typing my numbers away without having to retrain or relearn muscle memory. So thank you very much for that keyboard. The other thing to say about this keyboard is that it is not mechanical. It is more of a typical membrane offering. However, it's a very well tuned one. You get a lot of tactility due to the 2mm of key travel, and it's fairly responsive if a little bit more force is required to push down the keys, but nothing significant where you would say, hey, you need to really slam this keyboard in order to get your typing done. Now, let's turn to the RGB. RGB is managed by what Gigabyte is calling RGB Fusion. On this device, RGB Fusion can be managed from the Gigabyte Control Center or from the keyboard itself. So if holding down function and using the arrow keys allows you to set the brightness on the keyboard, and you can turn that all the way down to 0. It has 10 precise levels of keyboard backlight. So here we go. I want to demonstrate that. So 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100% brightness. The keys do get very nice and bright, they're very vibrant, and as you can see here, the lighting is so well done that there's very little light bleeding or peeking out from behind and besides the keycaps. And the lettering on the top is very, very well done as well. My big complaint about the backlight and the RGB is, despite having this function key to highlight particular functions when I'm interested in one, why did Gigabyte not illuminate the secondary functions and the secondary keys on each key? So for example, let me turn down the brightness. I think this is the best way to demonstrate this. If I don't have key lighting on, I'm working late at night or in a low lit environment, I press the FN key and I get some keyboard highlights on what function keys are available to me. However, if I want to adjust the brightness, I have to hunt in the dark. Why did they not illuminate the secondary functions on these function keys? I do not understand. This was an issue a few years ago with some manufacturers not doing this. And of course with the Cherry MX keyboards from Alienware that don't have illumination on the secondary functions, but to see Gigabyte do this on a non-mechanical keyboard is just baffling. Why would they decide to do this and ruin the user experience? I do not understand, but it is what it is, and I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out to you guys. So if you use those function keys a lot, particularly the secondary functions as I do, then you're gonna find this at least a minor annoyance. The display on the Aorus 17X I think hits the sweet spot. It's a 1440p resolution at 2560 by 1440 with thin bezels, but as that's become the norm, that's not anything in particular to write home about. Nonetheless, it does help to ease the experience, and being able to easily slip it into a standard 17-inch laptop bag is a big plus. Not something that can be said for the 18-inch behemoth gaming laptops that have made their way onto the laptop scene this year. In addition, the display panel in the Aorus 17X comes factory pre-calibrated for 100% of DCI P3 color gamut coverage. That's a big plus for gamers and creators alike. It also gives you a big boost to your movie and content enjoying experience from the extra color reproduction ability of this panel. To top it off, the 16:9 1440 panel runs at 240Hz, so fast refresh rates are on board here. I'm sure the fanboys of the 16:10 aspect ratio panels are going to have something to say about that, but keep in mind that most content is still filmed at 16:9, so it's a more appropriate fit for consuming and producing as well as gaming. One thing to note though is that this panel, though it may be a FreeSync panel or support some form of adaptive display technology, there's no mention and no branding to alert the user of this. There's no NVIDIA G-Sync sticker on this laptop, and certainly no mention of AMD FreeSync anywhere. Despite this, in my gameplay and testing, I found the panel to be sharp and responsive without any lag, stutter, or jutter from the images, even down to the low 30s for frame rates. Overall, a good effort, but some clarity in this area would be helpful. Gigabyte, hope you're listening. One other small annoyance that I have to tell you about: above the display panel resides a 1080p Full HD webcam with IR sensors for Windows Hello, login, and biometric authentication. Akin to a face unlock, if you will, on an Android device, this works very well and is quick to log in. The problem is that as you begin to close the panel more than halfway, the infrared sensors kick in and think that you're going to close the lid all the way, and prematurely puts the laptop into sleep or hibernation mode depending on your settings. You'll then have to pause, spend a minute to either fully close and then reopen the lid, or to press the power button again to reliven the laptop. A minor issue, and one that I hope can be resolved with a future software update. Furthermore, this panel suffered from one of the worst cases of backlight bleed that I've noticed this year. In all of the laptops I've tested thus far, this panel had backlight bleed problems up at the top with multiple regions, and at the bottom, as well as the bottom right hand corner. Simply unacceptable for a laptop of this price and class in 2023. This CPU is one I've tested several times now. The Aorus 17X is equipped with the Intel i9 13900HX 24-core and 32-thread CPU that boosts up to 5.4 GHz. It is a quick performer and can handle anything you could throw at it today and even years to come. The CPU worked well and was within margin of error with the other 13900HX equipped laptops that I've tested this year. The one odd issue that I did notice is that at times my Aorus 17X would slow to a crawl, with everything losing responsiveness that's characteristic of this CPU. Upon digging in and checking Performance tab in the Task Manager, I found that the CPU had dropped down to just 400 MHz. That's 0.40 GHz. I did some searching online but failed to come up with any useful information on this particular CPU in 2023, and even less so for this model of laptop. It's happened now more than several times, and that's left me puzzled. I'm not sure if it's an issue with this particular unit, the CPU, the motherboard, or what. Issues like this are very hard to troubleshoot. I had very high expectations for this Gigabyte laptop since on paper it had all the right equipment, but the reality is obviously a little different. Sometimes just having the best specs on paper doesn't exactly translate to a great real-world usage experience. Perhaps if I have time, I'll reach out to Gigabyte directly and see if this is indeed just a defective model or there is some issue within the CPU in this device. One of the main selling points for buying the Aorus 17X for me was the faster RAM. In 2023, most gaming laptops that offer DDR5 are still stuck at 4800 MHz. And when we know that faster RAM affects performance and gives you higher frame rates, why some manufacturers would cheap out on this is a mystery to me. Thank you Gigabyte for offering the speediest DDR5 RAM in the Aorus 17X. The one complaint I do have in this area is why did Gigabyte choose to offer only a single 16 GB stick of RAM, thus offering only single channel operation? My unit, which comes with 16 GB RAM but only a single stick, is puzzling. Why could two 8 GB DDR5 modules not have been installed for dual channel operation? On the plus side though, the Aorus 17X offers two DDR5 SODIMM slots and supports up to 64 gigs of 5600 MHz RAM with 2 by 32 GB modules. This is excellent upgradability and future proofing. The Aorus 17X offers two 2.5 watt speakers that are tuned by DTS:X Ultra audio technology. They get plenty loud at full volume but do get a bit tinny. There is very little bass on offer here. They do drown out the noise at max fan speed though, so they're fairly usable when gaming without headphones. Though, as with all laptops, a good pair of headphones will elevate your audio experience to new heights. My recommendation here, get yourself a very good pair of headphones and you won't have to worry about the sound and the speakers on the Aorus 17X. Apple seems to be light years ahead in this regard, and until PC OEMs wake up and figure out what they're doing over there, will continue to suffer with lackluster audio offerings. There's a 1TB PCIe NVMe Gen 4 SSD installed in the Aorus 17X that I have here. In addition, there is another slot for expanding the storage. Both slots are of the 2280 variety and can accept standard Gen 4 SSDs for a theoretical max capacity of 8 TB. Furthermore, the drive provided is actually a Gigabyte branded drive. As Gigabyte has made its way into the data storage space as of late and has started to offer SSDs as well as other storage products. It is a decent performer with pretty solid read rates, well above 6000 megabytes per second, with just middling write score of around 4500 megabytes per second. This is far below the maximum Gen 4 supported read and write speeds of 7000 megabytes per second. Still, no slouch, and you won't notice any lag or delay due to storage issues. The Aorus 17X for 2023 from Gigabyte features a new FHD 1080p webcam that has improved quality and handles lighting conditions much better. In daylight, it looks great and works well in meetings. So well, in fact, that I've gotten comments as to what I had done with my webcam or if I had purchased a new one. This alone was worth the price of admission. Thank you, Gigabyte, for providing a nice webcam experience for those of us that have to work from home and are road warriors. Also, there are array microphones on board to help crosstalk and noise reduction to ensure that clear audio is being captured from any angle. This has been a webcam and mic test of the Gigabyte Aorus 17X for 2023. What do you think of the video quality and the audio quality? Let me know in the comments below. The thermals for the Aorus 17X have been vastly improved this year thanks to the introduction of a vapor chamber, improved fans, more of them, 4 fans to be exact, as well as better overall cooling design. In fact, it has been so impressive in my opinion that we're getting awfully close to being able to game without thermals and fan noise being a hindrance without headphones. Perhaps in another generation or two we'll forget all about it and will no longer require such sections and focus for reviews on thermals and fan noise on gaming laptops. I've dedicated a separate video to testing the Aorus 17X and its various performance mode as defined in the Gigabyte Control Center and accompanying thermals and fan noise. Do check out that video on my channel for all of the details and lengthy discussion on this topic. As impressive and efficient as the 13th generation Raptor Lake processors compared to the previous generation are, I still believe there's a long road ahead, particularly if we take Apple's laptops and their MacBook Pros as the standards against which battery life is to be measured. Perhaps with the upcoming AMD Zen 5 architecture and hybrid low power and high performance cores design akin to the Intel Alder Lake and Raptor Lake CPUs, maybe we'll finally start to see battery life on PCs and MacBooks converge. But at this point, that would just be hopium. Until these things realize and prove themselves in the market, we can only speculate. Furthermore, the current status of battery life testing on PC laptops, even from big outlets such as PC Mag and PC World, leave lots to be desired. Setting the laptop to 50% brightness or lower, turning Bluetooth off, and reloading a web page on a loop in a browser or just video playback is not the best way to test real battery life in my opinion. That said, there is such a variety of use cases and each user's workflow can be so different that there is no way to standardize this. Thus, the approach that most tech outlets have adopted is to run the battery from 100% to 0 with some repetitive task as to emulate the power drawdown. My testing consists of using the device as my primary laptop over several days of my developer workflow. This includes having multiple browser windows open, running multiple IDEs, using multiple communication tools, attending meetings, using Slack, Google Meet, and the like, as well as having multiple apps running in the background for debugging and development. In addition, I'm running Docker in the background with multiple containers and Windows subsystem for Linux with Java and Node.js apps running. I would say that based on this definition, my use case is a heavy user workflow and thus a good indication for how well a laptop can fare on battery along with the above usage. Based on this and several days of testing, I was able to achieve on the Aorus 17X with its 99 watt-hour battery, the legal limit for being allowed to carry a lithium-ion battery on board a flight, for between 4 to 5 hours. Of course, this varied a bit depending on how many meetings, how heavy my workflow was, but a good indication and an average for a day. Based on these results, you can carry the laptop around for a few meetings, return to your desk for a charge, and head out for lunch. When you come back, the laptop will have picked up enough charge to carry you through the rest of the day unplugged. Fast charging is on board here with ability to get from 0 to 50% in 30 minutes. In addition, USB Type-C charging is also available in a pinch if you don't feel like carrying around the 330 watt massive power brick or have forgotten it. Though an odd choice, USB Type-C charging on the Aorus 17X is limited to 86 watts. An odd choice, and I'm not sure what is the reasoning behind it. Most gaming laptops that support USB Type-C charging can typically support 100 watts of USB Type-C power delivery. Still, not a bad experience in my opinion considering the class of device that we're talking about here. At this point, the only GPU in the 4000 series that I have not tested yet is the RTX 4090, but that's a later conversation. This Gigabyte Aorus 17X comes equipped with an RTX 4080 laptop GPU with 12 gigs of VRAM and is spec'd for 175 watts of maximum power. But the fact that even on Gigabyte's specifications page for the Aorus 17X, it states may vary by scenario, tells you everything you need to know. At this point though, this is my third RTX 40 laptop I've tested this year. I'm starting to get the sense that manufacturers and NVIDIA have colluded to ensure that every buyer ends up buying an RTX 4090 equipped laptop for maximum profits, by ensuring this is the only GPU that can and does run at a full max TDP of 175 watts where it's stated. This laptop also comes with NVIDIA Advanced Optimus for dynamic display switching, and thus the best of both worlds, battery life and display under check for longevity, and the full 240Hz and dedicated GPU power when plugged into AC power. But perhaps I'm conjecturing too hard now. I'll be keen to notice this when I get my hands on some RTX 4090 laptops real soon. And yes, I said laptops. So stay tuned, get subscribed so you don't miss that coverage. Alright, back to the RTX 4080. What can I really say? Combined with the Gigabyte Control Center and its lack of informative predefined modes of operation, it's really hard to say which mode you should be running and which will actually give you the full power of the RTX 4080 in games such as Red Dead Redemption 2 and Cyberpunk 2077. And if you layer on the AI boost and the AI tech that Gigabyte's promoting but not clearly defining, it's even more of a mystery. But in my testing with gameplay and benchmarks, I was able to notice that this laptop can easily hits 175 watts on this GPU and is very capable of doing so, especially with the vapor chamber upgrade for the 17X this year. How often it actually hits that target and sustains it is rather the bigger question. In almost all games that I tested, I saw it hit numbers close to 170 to 175 watts, but only for brief fleeting moments and just as a show and a tease. Almost as if to say, hey, yeah, 175 watts, I can do that, only to back off immediately and settle at around 150 to 165 watts. Still, much better numbers than the 140 watts I was seeing with only the gaming mode in the Gigabyte Control Center. To get the maximum out of this laptop, you'll need to enable AI boost mode and leave it on. What further irks me about this mode is that it's just a giant override that takes over full control and doesn't give 2 cents about any tweaks you may have done to configuration in other modes. Then it sends who knows what amounts of data to Microsoft's Azure cloud thanks to the partnership between Gigabyte and Microsoft to then send back ideal settings for the scenario, app, and usage of the device. In addition, because AI Boost overrides all other settings and any modes, any attempts at fixing PL1 and PL2 power limits on the Intel CPU proved fruitless. They were more or less being ignored if the AI Boost was enabled. Turning AI Boost off and using either gaming or turbo mode with PL1 and PL2 limits applied with Intel's Extreme Tuning utility didn't do much either. In fact, with this approach, I saw lower numbers than with just simply enabling AI Boost and leaving it there. So, if anything, I guess it proves that whatever AI Boost is doing is working, and working well, I might add. If you plan to game on this laptop, I would suggest forget about fan profiles, modes, and simply go into Gigabyte Control Center, toggle AI Boost mode on, and enjoy. On the one hand, I do enjoy the simplicity and ease of this, so if you're a click and play kind of person, you'll love it. I know I did at certain moments. But not knowing what is happening under the hood didn't sit well for me. All of that aside though, if you do use this laptop as I've just described, it's a blast because for the first time in many years, the performance is great, thermals are in check, and the fan noise is toned down a lot. I have to admit that honestly, if I just shut off my tinkering brain, enable AI Boost, jump into any game, I had a genuinely good time. Yet another reason I was so excited to test out this laptop and was really hoping that this may become my daily driver. Overall, the Aorus 17X delivers pretty good value and a pretty great user experience. I've immensely enjoyed my time with this laptop, and having been able to edit this entire video on it proves that it has the chops to be a daily driver and a beast of a machine. Having a full license for Windows Pro, whereas other OEMs such as Dell and Lenovo upcharge $100 or more for a bump from Windows 11 to Windows 11 Pro, is a bonus. Next, the 16 GB of DDR5 5600 MHz RAM is also a plus. Though I do wish that it was 32 gigabytes or at least at the very least 2 8 gigabyte sticks so you could benefit from dual channel memory, it's still a quick and easy upgrade. Another 16 gigabyte DDR5 5600 MHz stick should run you around $50 US. Considering that RAM prices for DDR5 are dropping further, this will only be an easier upgrade down the road. And having 2 slots to be able to upgrade and not soldered RAM is the way to go. I must offer praise to Gigabyte and other OEMs who are going this route. Then, the display is pretty sweet. Despite the issues with no labels addressing the variable refresh rate technology that's on board, such as AMD FreeSync or NVIDIA G-Sync, it is a smooth and bright panel for gameplay, for media consumption, and editing. And at 17 inches and 1440p resolution, I believe the real sweet spot between 4K and 1080p in terms of battery life, sharpness, and overall usability. Even the backlight bleed issues, though present, do not affect day-to-day usage or gameplay overall. The port offering is well balanced and spread out around the device as not to hinder your workflow. I do wish that at least another Thunderbolt 4 port was on offer though. And sorely missing from this device a full-sized SD card reader. But considering that this is a gaming-focused device first, I'm willing to compromise on that front. Also, the thermals and fan noise are so good in fact that I've been very surprised and very pleased with the overall experience, working, editing, and gaming on this device. The only big downside I have about this device is the CPU throttling very hard down to 400 MHz as I've mentioned in my CPU performance segment. I hope that this is just affecting my device and there is some defect and that swapping it for another device will resolve this problem. I'll have to wait and see, and I might report back if I indeed find this to be the case. And finally, as for gaming, I've been very pleasantly surprised here as well. Go to Gigabyte Control Center, enable the AI boost mode, launch your favorite game, and enjoy. You'll forget about the days of tweaking, modes, fan profiles, etc. as Gigabyte and Microsoft's Azure Cloud do their best to get you the most optimal gaming experience. And as this experience improves over time, it's only going to get better. Considering that AMD showed off such a one button to tune your machine for gaming mode at CES 2023, with tech and software to be released later this summer, this is definitely the way to go. I look forward to the days when we can simply open up a laptop and use it for any purpose without having to think too much. All in all, a great effort from Gigabyte and a massive improvement in laptops over laptops of past years. And the fact that Gigabyte is not the largest of the OEMs, this is a significant accomplishment. I give all the credit to Gigabyte for a job well done, and they have something very special on their hands with this one. And at a price of $34.99 Canadian or $26.99 US for the RTX 4080 equipped model as I have here, I believe this laptop has a lot to offer and should not be discounted. This laptop is going to be a standout for me in 2023 and one of my top recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this video review of the Gigabyte Aorus 17X for 2023 featuring the RTX 4080. If you liked my content, please like and subscribe to my channel and share this video across your social media channels to help grow this channel. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.